You're listening to the B&H Photography Podcast. For 50 years, B&H has been the professional source for photography, video, audio, and more. For your favorite gear, news, and reviews, visit us at bnh.com or download the B&H app to your iPhone or Android device. Now here's your host, Derek Fassbender.
You're listening to the B&H Photography Podcast. I'm your host, Derek Fassbender. I'm also the host of our new monthly series, Next Frame, in collaboration with creative producer Jill Waterman and audio engineer Mike Weinstein. How do you transition from being simply a friend with a camera to landing paid gigs with top fashion brands? All while juggling a budding photo career and the rigors of postgraduate study, along with sharing insider tips to inspire your community on the side. We answered these questions and more in this, our second episode of Next Frame, a monthly podcast series shining a light on rising creative talents. In addition to sharing the stories of our guests, we'll unpack their creative processes and gain fresh insight into today's photo industry. In today's show, we're speaking with Patience Ojionuka, a queer, Houston-raised, NYC-based photographer and psychology PhD student. Specializing in fashion and portraiture, Patience has worked on and assisted in projects for Teen Vogue, Wall Street Journal, Self Magazine, Who What Wear, Allure, and has had clients such as Tinder, Lex App, and National University. Outside the studio, you can find her singing a cappella, editing videos, or probably inappropriately doing doctoral homework at a party. Patience Ojionuka, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. What an intro.
I was going to say, what an intro to you. That's quite a biography there. I mean, you kind of touch all the dots. You got all the creative and the musical stuff down on top of being a doctoral student, which I think is super impressive.
Thank you. I think it's impressive too. I'm crazy.
You said it, not me. I can only hold down one thing at a time. But obviously, the topic du jour, photography. How did you first get involved and interested in photography?
Oh my gosh. I probably owe a big thanks to my sophomore year roommate. She happened to own a camera. And so I suddenly got interested in it as well. And I really got my start by doing like people's senior portraits in school or doing events here and there as an undergraduate. And it really just started out as a hobby. And I just loved taking pictures of my friends. And I also loved taking Polaroids at the time. And I kept upgrading my gear, getting more and better gear until it got to a point where I owned like a $2,000 camera. And I was like, all right, this can't be a hobby.
I have to do something with it.
Yeah, baby. We got to see some return on this investment. Let's get serious. And so it has just kind of snowballed from there. Of course, the pandemic happened, and I think the pandemic was kind of a time for me to do a little bit more introspective photography in the sense of I was really just shooting for myself, wasn't getting a whole lot of quote unquote client work. Again, I started in 2018. And then I would say between 2020 and 2022, since there really wasn't much else to do other than maybe photograph buildings, I was really doing that, landscapes, and also just friends. And I got into film photography pretty deeply. And that was just a really fun time. But again, expensive investment. Film photography is so expensive. So it's just another thing where I was like, all right, I'm getting really good at this thing. I love doing it. Not only is it an expression from myself, and I love to scrapbook and I love to document life. How can I also make it make sense that I get scans and prints and pay for developing? So yeah, it has just snowballed from there.
Photography got its hooks in, and you're like, I got to make it pay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's an expensive hobby to have. It's one of those that if you don't start getting either gig work or have aspirations of a full-blown career. Did you have aspirations of a career there, or was it kind of just like, you know what, I got all the gear, maybe let me take a go at?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I don't think I intended for it to be a full-blown career. It definitely was something that was like, I love to take pictures with my friends and I love to document my life. And just steadily became something that I kept getting so good at that people wanted to hire me, or I became known as the friend with the camera. And it was kind of like a positive feedback loop where the more I did it, the more I loved it, the better I got at it, the better I got at it, the more I loved doing it. Also, then the more I could get paid gigs from. And I think am in the middle of figuring out how it fits into my life, because at this point, I've gotten gigs that I think people who want this to be their only career could only dream of. Like, I've been so blessed to have so many incredible opportunities that most people would only be doing if they were intending to have this as their main 100% full-time job. And for me, it's like one job of many. So I don't know if I have a complete answer to that question, but I know that I want photography to be in my life for a really long time. And I want to keep doing even bigger, more exciting, fantastical projects that I could have only dreamed of back in 2018 when I was an undergrad.
No, it's a great stance to have. And I think one of the beautiful things about where we're at as a culture is photography used to be one of those things where it was either a full-time or you weren't taken seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of artists used to struggle where it's like, well, I have a full-time job, but I do professional gigs, but I don't really feel like I'm a professional photographer because it's not my bread and butter. And I think we've finally gotten over that hump of, number one, judging part-time artists, but also part-time artists feeling like they don't really have a stake in the industry because they're not full-time. In particular, I know at least two that are actual medical doctors, working medical doctors who are also
Love that.
super successful photographers, sponsored by big brands. So I think we're in a great place where there's room to have a full-time job and room to be maybe not a full-time photographer, but a serious professional photographer who's deserving of the title. Now, I want to move to your connection to ASMP's Bridge Mentorship program, because a lot of what helps us navigate through these decisions is a mentor. And there's so many great mentorship programs. Can you talk about how you came in contact with ASMP's Bridge program?
It was totally on a whim. I think maybe they ran some ads or posted about it on Instagram, as one does. And my partner also happens to do photography and was kind of like, you're wanting to get a little bit more serious about photography. And this is 2023. And of course, being the procrastinator that I am, I waited to the very last day. Didn't know if I was going to get it or not. It just seemed like such a good program that it was almost too good to be true. And then I got in. And now, 2 years later, I can definitively say that it changed my life in a way that I don't even know if they're aware. And by they, I mean like the mentors that were a part of the program. I think they're seeing the work that I've been doing and they're like, oh, wow, you really actually benefited from this a lot. So yeah, it was just a whim. I found it on Instagram and I sent it an application. I didn't think I was going to get in. I thought it was super exclusive. And then I just learned so much from that program. And I think it was less about the program necessarily teaching you one particular skill. Like they weren't teaching you how to use a camera or necessarily how to use lights. I think the most important thing is that they showed how the life of a photographer, how it works. Like they were really like, here's how you navigate the industry. And I think for me, the point that I was at, I was already making work that I feel like even now I'm still really proud of, but it just showed me like, oh, if I wanted to make this lucrative, and I really wanted to pursue this as a quote unquote side hustle, if you will, I could do it. It is actually within my reach. And the difference between me and the next successful photographer, there's not that big of a gap. And I think having that knowledge of how small the gap is between hobbyist and professional completely changed my perspective. And I think I wouldn't be where I am without that program at all.
Yeah, a lot of times it's just the doing. I think a lot of hobbyists are afraid to take a leap and they think that you have to take a certain kind of leap. But having these programs that open up this industry knowledge, gatekeeping has been a huge thing in our industry for such a long time. And you're starting to see more of this information become available and you're starting to see a lot more mentorship programs. I know you have some experience with LR2 and Shotti over there and what he's doing.
Yes.
And he's one person who's been pushing to knock down these walls of gatekeeping and really just take everything that not only he has access to, but his network as well. So he's got the studio space, the network, the information, and helping photographers from all different communities have access to this information, which is awesome, right?
Yes. So ASMP is actually how I met Shotti. He wasn't my direct mentor, but just ended up kind of taking me under his wing anyways. And because I lived so close to the studio, I would say pretty much all of the summer of 2024 and the fall of 2023, I was just in there. Like if you go through my Instagram, pretty much half my work is tagged LR2 because that's where I shot at. And some of my most well-performing posts have been at LR2. And it was just so incredibly helpful to have a space to just play. Like, it wasn't so much that he sat me down and taught me about lighting so much as I just had the space to play and figure it out myself. And that was what I needed. I would go and watch a YouTube video about how to light something. And then the next few days or sometime that week, I would go into the studio, bring a model and like try to recreate it as best as I could. And that's just so helpful. And so definitely LR2 has been a part of my journey. And I can't stress enough, I am such a firm believer that anyone is capable of accomplishing the things they set their minds to, given enough time, space, and resources. And that is exactly what I needed to make the jump between hobbyist to professional. It was just time, space, and resources. And that was what LR2 was for me.
I don't think I could possibly phrase that any better. Time, space, resources. We're going to have to all write that one down. I was actually I swear, it's like you were in my head this weekend with what you just said about the space alone. Mm-hmm. I don't think people realize how important space is. You don't realize it until you have a space where you can create in.
Yeah.
And it's just like the conversation I was having yesterday with another creative that I randomly bumped into. And it's the fact of when you want to create something and you have a space, you can just do it. You don't need to book something. There's no layover time. You don't need to put things together. You're kind of just already there and you can create. Can you talk a little bit more about how having that space opened up your creativity?
Oh my gosh. Well, LR2 just has so much equipment that is available. So I think that if you were to do a kind of analysis across studios in New York City, I think LR2 really stands up. So I would look at lighting tutorials and be like, how many lights does this require? Can I make this in the studio? And 9 times out of 10, the answer was yes, I could create it. So just having a space to go and create is just incredible. I could host an entire editorial, have an entire day of shooting. And even though I wasn't yet booking huge gigs, I just needed to make a portfolio that I was proud of. And I was able to do that using LR2. There's just nothing like having an idea and then immediately being able to execute. Because I find so often that being caught up on location, like when I have an idea, but where can I do it? Where am I supposed to have this? Where can I go? Especially if you want to do something in the studio, because the cost really adds up. So I think something that LR2 has been doing that's been really great, that I think other studios should definitely take notes, is having a residency program. And so he'll have photographers come and apply and then give them a month-long residency where they can basically just book as they need, or they come with a project idea and they can bring that project to life in the studio, and he'll have the other interns or people that are available at the studio help them bring that project to life if they need to, or teach them how to use the equipment, which is another thing. As much as I love YouTube University, there's also some things that you just won't know until you are able to do. There's just some things about how the gear feels or how lighting looks and behaves that you just won't have the knowledge of unless you're able to go out and try it. And so many people don't have access to $2,000 pro photo lights, or like how many of our thousands of dollars pro photo is. So yeah, definitely was such a huge part of my journey.
Yeah, and I'm going to agree with you, and we'll kind of dig on that. There's a certain feeling, and it goes way beyond the, inverse square law and settings and all the technical jargon. It's just a feel, and I think lighting is something that you can feel yourself out with lighting. You don't have to have explicit knowledge of the technical side, but you can get in there with lights and space, again, resources, time, and space, and you can make things happen. Now, I know you dedicate a lot of your TikTok presence to your lighting stuff, and through looking at your work, we see why a space is essential, because it's studio, it's fashion, it's people related. I want to talk about your love of lighting. I mean, it seems like your passion is in fashion. It gives me Vogue. That's the look it gives to me. And you do have some stuff that's outside of the studio, but I can tell your passion lies in, I'm looking through your lighting. It's like different schematics, different looks, different moods. So can you talk about your journey in learning lighting and, again, expanding on that idea of no gatekeeping and passing on what you learn onto others?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yes. You can't see me, but I'm tucking my imaginary hair behind my ear. I'm also bald, so I don't have hair, but I think I was drawn to learning about lighting precisely because I didn't know anything about it. I was like, if there is something that is holding me back about photography. If there's something I don't know, I want to know it if I want to take on professional jobs. And around this time, again, so this is 2023, I'm just sort of developing a taste and an idea for what I want my quote unquote style to be, and started finding myself gravitating more towards studio work and things that required lighting, but I didn't know anything about it. And it really started with one shoot with my actual mentor in the ASMP program. His name is JJ Redditon. Hey, JJ, I hope you're listening to this. And we did a shoot outside. It was just one light. And from there, I kind of was very obsessed with the look. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. How can I learn more? And at the same time, noticing that although, again, you can learn so much on YouTube, most photographers are not going to give you the secret sauce. They're not going to tell you how the sausage is made because that's usually part of their signature style. So you might find tutorials on YouTube or wherever else that are going to teach you the basics, but it felt like so many of them are not really stylized. They're not really going super into depth. Now, there are definitely some YouTubers out there, but I just felt like there was something missing. So it was a combination of how can I close the gap between the taste that I have and the work that I'm currently creating. And I think that honestly, being a photographer or like being an artist of any sort is constantly trying to close the gap between taste and what you're capable of. And that's where I found myself. And I just have come to love it a lot and think that it just makes a photo so interesting and in a way that I cannot completely describe or capture. And it also almost feels like a puzzle to me. And the more I learned about it, the more I couldn't unsee it. Anytime I look at a photo, I'm always thinking about where the shadow is falling or like where is the light falling? How is the light being shaped in this image? It could be any image. And it's fun for me because when I first started trying to do studio work in 2023, I didn't understand any of it. I was so confused. I would go to one of my mentors and be like, what do you think this light setup is? And he would tell us. And he'd be like, how could you possibly know this? And now I'm kind of in that position where I look at an image and I'm like, I bet I could recreate that. That would be so cool.
You're getting to the point where you're going to be sitting there in a random room. You're going to be at like a house party and you're like, wow, that light is really cool over there. And over here,
Yes!
I like how they're in the shadows. And it's like your entire life becomes consumed with the light in this room sucks. How could I make it better? And I think that's an important thing for advancing in your work and your style and developing your own vision. So how do you feel you have already advanced from the patients that first started to where you are now? How has the transition been? Are you a much different photographer? Have you changed as far as what you're into or what your strengths are?
Yes. Well, of course. I think both, one, in technical skill, like I think I am technically a better photographer in knowing more about gear. And it only took really, I think, 1 or 2 sessions of my mentor sitting down with me. It's really cool to just know more about the equipment. I feel I have a very pragmatic approach to photography in that I really do believe that a lot of it is taste and some of it is gear, but understanding the gear is so important to get you to the next level. And I think from where I was in 2023, I just know more about how it all works. I don't have all the language because I wasn't trained in that way. I didn't take classes about it, but I do have an understanding of how the technology works, what sort of features or settings are going to get you what you need. And I feel like that's often so much of the hump that even like women photographers, I think, feel intimidated by and why it's maybe considered such like a boys' world. So that is one part, having more technical knowledge about photography. And then also just like my taste has elevated so much more. And I think I can tell because there are mood boards and decks or dream boards that I made in 2023 of work that I was like, this is so cool. I wish I could create something like this. I'm looking back 2 years later and be like, oh, this is like kind of corny. Not only do I not care for this work, I actually think I could do it better. And I think that is, for me, such a testament to improving as an artist, is looking back at the things that you were so curious about and didn't understand how to create, and then now knowing how to create them. I've obviously become better at lighting in studios, posing models, which was something I don't think that I anticipated. And honestly, I think there's still room to grow because I do work with a lot of signed models. They just know what to do. And I really give very little direction most of the time. And also just understanding life on set, which I think is a whole different sort of interpersonal dynamic that also separates a hobbyist from professional, and then a professional that keeps getting booked from a professional that gets booked one time.
Mm. And this is all stuff that's helped you land the jobs that you've landed. And without the experience, without the knowledge, you wouldn't be doing this work. So I want to talk about some of these jobs. Out of all your gigs so far, is there one that stands out as most memorable or meaningful or something that you took the most from?
I would say one of my most memorable gigs was the super short story that I did for Wall Street Journal. And I think what was so fun about that was both the editor is just a cool guy, but that I was a new photographer. I didn't have any other publications, but he really took a chance. He had me meet the team. I gave them my business cards. And I think that just being kind and personable will really take you quite far in the industry, more so than people might anticipate. And that was really what I took away from it, is that he couldn't stop talking about both how good my work was and how cool he thought it was, but also that I was just fun to get along with. I'm just a fun girl.
That means a lot.
And it means a lot. It really means a lot. It actually does really stand out in an industry, especially like fashion, where people can be mean. It can be like a really cutthroat industry and doesn't really evoke the kindest feelings and responses from people all the time. Like, it's not always super friendly. So when you do meet people that are nice and you get to work with artists that are pleasant to have around and nice on set, there are people that you want to keep working with. And I think that was something that actually we learned in the ASMP program, is that like technical skill is great and like having a great vision, that's incredible. But being nice to work with sometimes will get you hired again and more often over the next person who maybe isn't as personable or isn't as pleasant to work with. Because you always want to have fun on set. If you have to do a project, why not do it with people that make it fun? So that was something that I really learned from the Wall Street Journal. Of course, also being in this big building and seeing how it all works, getting to walk around the Wall Street Journal office and feel really special and like I was really cool. And just being behind the scenes in that way, understanding how the story came to life and how quickly it works. Because something that I didn't realize was that for the section that I was shooting for, which was the off-duty section, they basically release on a week-to-week basis. So they're constantly having people produce, having people come and shoot inside of the studio, producing so quickly. And then I was also sent like a copy of the newspaper that it was published in. And so that to me was just so exciting. And I just felt very validated in the work that I was doing. And it was my first, again, big publication that I just wouldn't have anticipated. That was like, I think July of last year. And so much has already happened since then.
And how have you used that to seek out more of this same kind of work? I mean, you talked about the lessons that you've learned in terms of, I think it really just comes down to being yourself and working hard and being nice to people.
Yeah.
But from everything else, whether it's consciously or subconsciously that you absorbed from that shoot, as far as the workflow and pitches and how to work with big brands, have you actively taken note and made changes to the way you do things so that you can secure more jobs like that?
Yes. The reason I even was able to land that Wall Street Journal gig was because I pitched. I pitched myself. I had just gotten laid off. I sent him my portfolio as I was sending to pretty much anyone whose email I had at the time, which wasn't very many, but there were a few people I had taken notes on. And he responded, and that's how we ended up getting to grab lunch. I talked to him about my portfolio and the journey that I was on. And knowing that that works, just knowing that, oh, you can send an email and someone might care enough to want to meet with you.
What a concept.
Oh my gosh. What a concept. Super huge ego boost. So then I realized, oh, I need to keep doing this. I need to keep reaching out. I need to keep sharing my work because it literally works. So on top of both pitching and learning how to pitch, just continue to sharpen my portfolio in a way that makes people want to click on it when they get it in their inbox. Also, learning the power of sharing your work, which was, again, part of pitching. I think the best thing and best marketing that I could do is continuing to post on social media. It is a double-edged sword in that it is unfortunate that things are this way, that social media is so powerful. And it's also so cool that it is as powerful as it is, because I think more than even pitching, and I've sent quite a few emails out. I reach out to editors all the time ever since the Wall Street Journal thing worked out for me. But just posting to Instagram or just sharing your work online is just so impactful because you have no idea who's watching. And they are watching. They being editors, creative directors, art directors, people who have the ability to make decisions and have the ability to hire you for these high-paying gigs. They are watching. They are constantly looking for new artists and like fresh work to work on these projects. There's always projects happening. And I think that is the biggest thing I learned, that there's nothing more powerful than sharing your work. And it both sharpens your abilities as an artist in that you get constant feedback, or maybe no feedback at all, but at least like you get over the nerves of sharing your work that I think is so easy to feel that fear on social media.
Yeah, it builds that comfort level out.
Yeah, exactly. You just eventually get to being like, oh, whatever, I'm just going to post it, which I think is like the best attitude to have about like art. Don't think too hard, just post it. And if you hate it, you can archive it. It's okay. So I think those are the biggest takeaways, is that you should be sharing your work. And that looks like pitching, cold emails, and just posting online. And it is unfortunate that it feels like gone are the days of just like having work that is so good that someone notices you and like scouts you. I think you really have to be pushing yourself all the time.
Totally. What about social media strategy? I mean, do you have a strategy? Is it TikTok, Instagram? Are you fine-tuning this towards what you do best, or what do you recommend people do? Especially for the younger photographers, for people that are your age who are trying to break in and do the same jobs that you're doing. What do you recommend they do as far as social media?
I hate to say become a content creator, but man.
If it works, right?
Man, does it work? Oh my gosh. I think even just, again, posting even in the regular way, if you just want to post a carousel of your work and share your work as you continue, and you have to continue. You can't just like post your work a few times and then like months or years pass and you don't post anything. I would say my current strategy is a little wonky because I just do so many things. So my Instagram and TikTok and a little bit of YouTube is a combination of, I am talking about lighting and I'm doing tutorials, but then I'm also talking about like the power of friendship and the power of love and community. And then, talking about being a doctoral student. So it's kind of a little bit all over the place, which is why I would say that mine is a little bit more content creation forward and a little bit about storytelling.
Okay.
But I think, honestly, even if you are a photographer and you just want to like slap your photos into a little reel and post that, you truly don't know how something is going to perform until you post it. That could be the reel that completely changes your life. And I say this because it literally happened to me, which is when I got laid off. A few days later, I posted a reel. I was like, my name is Patience. I just got laid off from my job. Here's my work. Viral. Instantly. I was not expecting it at all. It was just kind of like, okay, I just need to post something. I really have been sitting on a lot of behind the scenes footage because I was waiting for the perfect time to start, which, reminder to anybody listening, the perfect time to start is right now. I just posted it and it got a reaction that I just wasn't expecting. And that could happen to you. That could happen to anyone, which is why I like to say that posting your work is truly sometimes like a lottery ticket and you just don't know how it's going to take off. And even if it doesn't, you keep doing it anyways, because it just takes one person to look at your work and to see the value in it and give you the gig that you might be dreaming of.
Totally. And going back to what you said about becoming a content creator, I think there's a lot of people where it's like, especially when we get into the world outside content creation, and people use that term as such a dirty word, content creation. But a lot of times it's just
kind of dirty.
It's a dirty word. It is. But it's a vehicle to get people back to your real work, where it's one thing to throw out a reel and it's like, okay, cool, it goes viral. People look, and then they look at your work and it's like, oh, well, all this person is a content creator. They don't have anything of substance. But when it brings them back to a landing place where you have actual substantial work, I think it's a whole different ballgame. And then content creation is not your be all and end all. It's just a tool to get people back to your real work. Now, we spent all this time talking about photography, and now I want to go back to the other stuff because you are such an interesting person. The psychology. You're a classically trained violinist. How does all
Yes.
this play into you as a photographer? Do you draw inspiration from outside the photography world, or how does this affect what you do as an artist?
Oh my gosh, how did you know I was a violinist?
I know
You did your
everything.
research.
I did my research.
Oh, thank you. Yes. So one of my probably highest performing reels that I have to date, well, highest performing reels about my work is a lighting tutorial about an editorial that I did that was based off of an essay that I wrote in my master's program for psychology. And I called it like a psychofeminist project. Well, there's actually a couple of different installments, but it's basically taking inspiration from essays that I had actually written for class and then turning them into editorials. And that was some of my most engaged with content. And that was really how I got my start into doing editorials, was like, how can I bring these two very different parts of my brain together and different parts of my life together in a way that makes sense. And it only makes sense for me. Like, only my brain could have done this. And that is so fun and interesting. So I think that's one way where I brought them together. But again, I think just having the experience of doing psychotherapy, I think definitely comes up interpersonally on set. Like, I would say that I've been told not to toot my own horn, but again, being nice and kind and fun to be around on set. I think that's really, truly a deeply interpersonal experience. If you're somebody who is warm and welcoming and able to build connection with somebody very quickly and build rapport, again, goes such a long way. So I think that's just one way that I am pairing these two things together. I also think, separate from all of that, just generally, like, my values and my background, which is in human rights and social justice and is in queer studies and is in all of these things that I studied in undergrad, that comes in. Like, I really want to uplift other queer and trans artists of color. Like, that is the audience that I want to reach the most, which is why I start off my lighting tutorials the way they are. It's fun and it's kitschy and, it's hee hee ha and it's hilarious, but it's truly important to me. And I want these folks to have this information. And for me, that looks like also having queer and trans Black photo assistants or models or makeup artists, like, making sure that, especially with this knowledge and this following that I'm gaining, that I'm able to give back to my community that in that way by uplifting and teaching my community as much as I can.
I love that you're barely scratching the surface of your career, because I think you're
Oh,
going to have
yeah.
a long, long,
Oh,
long
yeah.
career. But to already know and have your audience targeted, that's something that a lot of people take a lot of time to try to figure out. And they're throwing out work into the ether and just seeing where it sticks and where it lands. And they don't really have any intention or purpose or target. So I think that's super commendable for you to already know, this is my audience. And not only this is my audience, but saying, this is how I start my videos because of this. And it's like, wow, to have that intent.
Yeah.
Artists that have been in the game 10, 15, 20 years sometimes don't have that kind of intention to their work. What do you think has been the main thing that you've learned from any of the mentoring, whether it's ASMP, whether it's pulling up to LR2 Studio? Is there one main thing that you learned from your mentoring that you make an effort to pass on to those that you want to inspire?
Oh, well, I think I've already quite enough harped on truly the importance of being kind on set, but also just in real life. Be kind to one another. But it truly does go a long way. And I think my mentor at ASMP, his name was Justin Lim, that was one of the things that he talked about. He's like, between you and the next photographer who's just as talented as you and skilled, someone will just pick the person that's easier to work with and kind and fun to be around. I cannot stress this enough. Another thing to take away is just like having a can-do attitude about your work, because between all of the mentoring that I've had, I think it's been very clear that success is both a combination of luck and preparation. I think so many of the gigs that I've gotten has been like right time, right place, but also having the skill set and having the knowledge to make you the right fit for the job. So I think that's something that I've been taking away from mentorship and that I want to continue to lend to people is just building up the sort of skill and acumen that it takes to do the work that you want to be known for and publishing the work that you want to be known for. And so whenever I do have my own interns or my own photo assistants come on, like I really want to impart that knowledge to them of trying to encourage them to do whatever it is that they want to do, build a portfolio that they feel very proud of, because if you believe in your work, the paid gigs that you want will come to you. And you just have to be willing to keep pushing your work and putting it out there and putting yourself out there. So I would say one thing that I've taken away is, again, be kind to other people, be nice. Being nice goes a long way and will get you hired. It is okay to be the personality hire. I'm fine with it. It's great. Love being here.
That's a flex.
Yeah. Love that. Passing the vibe check all the time. Duh.
If I bumped into you 5 years from now in LR2, where are you at in your career and where are you at as a photographer?
As a photographer, I would love to continue to be doing editorials for publications. I would love to be booking campaigns, have my work on billboards, mentoring probably in some capacity. I feel like I'm already doing it a little bit. I have some sort of very soft intern roles that I have debuted that are kind of out there, and I'm teaching a couple people one-on-one. I would love to have a lighting class or have done some sort of lighting workshop, maybe even have launched my YouTube, which has an extensive level of tutorials of some sort. And maybe one day even a book where I can collect all of the sort of lighting tutorials that I've done and put them into a book or a manual of some sort that people can use. In the totality of my career, kind of what I imagine my week looking like is one day I'm seeing psychotherapy clients, another I'm doing like cognitive assessments, and then another day of the week I'm shooting a campaign or I'm doing some sort of editorial for some super fun publication or a project that makes me happy. Yeah,
Love that.
I know. I think so long as my life stays dynamic and I feel aligned both creatively, politically, I'm doing what makes me happy and feel like I'm giving back to my community, both as a psychologist and as a photographer. That is the goal in 5 years. And 5 years from now, hopefully I've graduated. Ideally, I'm done with my PhD. I should have actually said that one first. You know, they say on average, like, oh, your program is supposed to be 5 years, but it might take you 6 or even 7. And I was like, I rebuke that. I would say those are some of the goals.
As somebody who took 5 years to do undergrad, yeah, I think you're good. Now, look, we talked about some of your past projects, stuff you've worked on. I want to know, what do you have in the future? Are there projects you're working on now or anything upcoming that you're excited about?
Oh my God. This is the thing that I'm like, okay, let me save this to the end. I'm actually in the middle of editing. And I think by the time this comes out, these will have been released. So I think I can talk about them. My very first editorial for Teen Vogue.
It's awesome.
I know. I was so excited about it. It literally just happened last Wednesday. And it is Shelly and Alandria from Love Island. And they are the sweetest sweethearts. And I'm so excited for these photos. They look super beautiful. And I think it was just so gratifying and such a full circle moment because, again, when I was in the ASMP program, they actually made us reach out to at least one photographer and ask them to assist. I happened to reach out to a photographer whose work I really loved. I reached out to her on Instagram. And I think truly, again, it's been really cool now, 2 years after this program, to reflect on all the sort of different inflection points that I didn't realize were inflection points at the time or couldn't have imagined that they would take me where they've taken me. But she says yes to me assisting her. So then I end up assisting her for a set where she's working for Teen Vogue back in 2023. And ever since being on that set, I kind of kept up with the editors and kept in touch with the folks that were working on the team. And then they finally reached out to me almost 2 years later, asking me to shoot this editorial.
Wow.
Yeah. And so as we are talking, I was actually in the middle of trying to edit these photos. They might go live this week. Yeah. It was just such a full circle moment. And I feel like everything I have done has really led up to this moment and led up to this project. Back in October, there's a video that I made about me making a dream board, basically of all the goals that I had. And Teen Vogue is actually on there, along with a couple of other brands that I have also gotten to work with as a content creator. That's been so cool. But yeah, that is probably the thing I'm most excited about. And I really do think that I got along with the team. So I think we're probably going to end up doing a lot more stuff together in the future. Very exciting.
I love that. Look, you're the perfect example of practice what you preach. I can tell you're the fun person on set. I can see why people love working with you, because you're right. You want to work with people that are fun to be around, because being on set is grueling, and especially the higher the production value, the more stress, the more tension. You need these people that just kind of break that. And then when you have the chops to back it up, it all makes it kind of come full circle where it's like, okay, she's fun, he's fun, they're fun, but can they take a picture? Can they deliver the vision? And I think that's what ties it all together. This has been such a fun conversation. Where can we learn more about your work, Patience? Where can we keep up on all your happenings?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so you can take a look at my website, which is patienceojionuka.com, or you can follow, like, share, comment, whatever on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Patience Ojionuka. It is just my first and last name on all of those platforms. Come check me out.
I love it. Well, Patience, such a pleasure having you on. I'm going to follow up with you down the road because I see big things. I'm going to check in on Shotti, make sure that he keeps plugging. We got to get you out in the streets with the psychology background and your technical chops with working with people. I would love to see you out in the streets creating work and really just interacting with people. You have such a good, infectious vibe. So I want to thank you again for joining us today.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
Our pleasure. And of course, to all of our listeners, thank you as well for joining us today. If you are a fan of the show but are not yet a subscriber, head on over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, B&H's YouTube channel, or wherever you get your podcasts and click subscribe. You can also find us on the Explorer blog, where we post photos from our guests along with our show notes. And please join us on Facebook at the B&H Photography Podcast group, where you can share your favorite photos and comment about the show. I'm your host, Derek Fassbender. Jill Waterman is our creative producer. Episodes are recorded, mixed, and edited by technical producer Mike Weinstein, and our executive producer is Richard Stevens. On behalf of us all, thank you so much for tuning in today.